you can draw this in Procreate and in Adobe Fresco. Because today's video will be slightly different than usual, because we are going to use the help of Adobe Fresco. You can just use the free version of Adobe Fresco. We're not going to pay $10 a month, Adobe, so no worries there. And of course, as always, I will guide you through every single step, so you can create this too. Just as a proof, check these results from previous tutorials. And in case you can't get enough after watching this tutorial, then be sure to check out my Patreon page as well. Here you can see some project results from my patrons. Now for this tutorial, you don't need any special brushes, but of course if you do want special brushes, then you can go to freefromflow.com and get my treasure chest full of free brushes and my ebook about color theory. But for this tutorial, it's not necessary. What we'll be using is a canvas of 2500 pixels by 2500 pixels, and I have my color profile set to sRGB. And of course we'll be using two apps this time, Procreate and Adobe Fresco. Free version, no need to pay anything. Oh, and of course I also have a color palette which I have linked in the description, so you can download that for free as well. Now let's get started. First thing we'll do is create a circle. We'll use the monoline brush for that, which is under Calligraphy. And for the color, we will be using this second color over here in the first row. And it doesn't really matter what size brush you're using, as long as the opacity is at 100%. I have the size at 20%, and we are just going to draw a circle. You can hold your pen in place to make it snap to a quick shape, and then hold one finger on the screen to make it snap to a perfectly round circle. And you can drag in the color like this to fill your shape, and remember that if you hold your pen and then drag it to the right or left, you can adjust the color drop threshold. That's handy when either your paint spills all over the canvas or when you get a little white edge around your shape. Now I just want to put the circle in the center. Let's go to the arrow tool here at the top, set it to uniform, go to snapping and make sure that snapping is turned on. And now you can wait, or well, not just wait, you'll have to move your pen of course. And then check when you see that vertical and horizontal line, then you'll know that you're in the center of your canvas, and then just click the arrow again. Now we are going to change the brush. We are going to the airbrushing brushes and use the soft brush. And first let's grab the third color in the first row. And we are going to add a shadow to our circle. But first we'll have to go to the layer menu and turn on alpha lock on this layer. Otherwise when we paint, it'll show up everywhere and we don't want that. So click the layer, then turn on alpha lock, and now our paint will only show up on the circle itself. I have the opacity of the brush set to 85%. Now let's make the brush a little bit bigger, 20. And we are going to add a shadow to the lower right area. And we are going to shade a little bit less than half of our circle. Make multiple strokes here at the bottom to make that darker. So you'll get something that looks like this. Now we are going to switch the color. We are going to use that first color in the first row. And let's make the brush a little bit smaller this time. Let's go for 12%. And I will just create a little light here in the upper left area. Just a little one. So it should look something like this. So what you have so far is just one layer with our round shape on it, and this is what we will be exporting to Adobe Fresco. You can easily do that by going to the wrench here at the top, then to share, and then share image and pick PSD. And then if you don't see Adobe Fresco here in the list, you'll just go to the right. Well, it's over here. If you can't see it here, then you can just click more and go down the list and find Adobe Fresco. So just click Adobe Fresco and then it'll open up in the app. And what we are going to do now is use the multicolor eyedropper tool. First click the eyedropper tool here and then click this little icon over here to select the multicolor or multiple colors eyedropper tool. Right now it's selecting that middle area, but we want to select the entire ball or circle. So we'll have to squeeze our circle and make it fit inside that like magnifying glass thingy. Try to be pretty precise, getting it inside that circle. And then when you click that little circle over here, you can click the plus to add our swatch to the swatches list. Now once you've done that, you can zoom back in, make your canvas bigger again. And we are going to turn this layer off by clicking that little eye icon and then click the plus for a new layer. And next we will be creating the word yes. But first let's create, well, something like a sketch, a little guide. We'll click the brush icon here, the pixel brushes, and let's just pick a sketching brush like the pencil. And then for the color, let's just grab a grayish color over here. Let's check the brush. Yeah, that's fine. Just like in Procreate, you can just tap with 2 fingers to undo your stroke. Now let's create the yes text. We'll start about here. First create the Y. And this is just like a sketch, a little guide. Then the E, and then we'll smoothly go to the S. Make a curved shape like this. And yes, it's not perfect, but it doesn't matter. It's just a guide. I want to move it just a little bit to the right, so we'll have to use this move tool over here, and you can just move it to the right like that, and then just click done. Now we are going to make a layer on top by clicking the plus over here. So we'll have to make sure that our final text is not on the layer with the sketch, of course, because then, well, you wouldn't be able to separate it anymore. Now we're going back to the pixel brushes. Go to, how do I go back? Yeah, click this little arrow over here, then go to basic and use the hard round brush. Now you can click over here on the color and pick that multicolor thingy swatch that we have created. And as you can see, when you draw now, you'll get this nice, almost like clay. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it looks really satisfying. Now, in case your brush settings are a bit different than mine, let's check them out. Hardness is at 100%, spacing to 0, angle is 10 degrees. I think these are pretty much the standard settings of this brush. It's 226 pixels. So let's just get started. Let's trace our yes. Let's not trace it exactly because it's not looking that good. And as you trace it, try to make smooth lines. Try to make it in one go. And don't worry, I understand that this is a little bit challenging. At least it is for me. But I can cut out those 100 tries that I'll be needing. So rest assured, you don't have to get it right in one try. Let me just zoom out just a little bit. And let's do this. And you know what? What we can do before we do this, which is actually a great idea. Let's go to this little wave type thingy, and you can turn up the smoothing here, just like Streamline in Procreate. Let's turn it up all the way to 100 to help us out here. Okay, now we're ready. Follow the lines. Make one smooth go. I think I'm pretty happy with this one. It only took like 5 tries. But of course, I have practiced this like 100 times before I started recording this video. So if you needed more tries, don't worry. First, let's go to this layer with our sketch and turn it off. You know what? Let's just remove them. Click this little icon here and tell it to, where is it? Delete layer. And this one as well. And now we can take this artwork, yes, we can take it back to Procreate. And you can actually do that by clicking this little like exit sign, and then click publish and export, then use export as. You can give it a name. Let's call it yes. The format is a PSD, then click export, and I will go back to Procreate. Just find it in the list and click it. Now we are back in Procreate, but you can see our yes, because you have to go back to your gallery and select it there. You'll find it there, I'm pretty sure. So you'll find it in the main gallery, and then just open it up and we can continue working on it. First thing I want to do is make our canvas a little bit bigger. We can do that by going to the wrench, then to canvas, then to crop and resize. Then we'll go to settings and we'll change the height to 3500 pixels. Click done. Let's move it just a little bit. And then click done again. In the next stage, we are going to add more shadow and highlight to our yes. First, let's add some shadow. Let's create a new layer on our yes layer. And we are going to use clipping mask here. Click the layer, turn on clipping mask. Now, whatever we paint on this layer, it'll only show up on our yes. And we are going to set this layer to multiply. We'll click the little N over here, then scroll up and set it to multiply. And for our color, we are going to use this dark color, this third color in the first row. And now we are going to imagine that there's light coming from the upper right corner, hitting the tops here, and this area, and over here. But on the undersides, in the lower left areas, there will be shadow, and also this little wriggly worm of the E, it'll block the light and cast a shadow on this area. And you'll see the same thing happen here. This part of the Y will cover or block the light and make a shadow in this area. Same goes here with the S. So try to imagine what parts will block the light. And I always like to imagine that there is like rain or water coming down, and then try to imagine what areas would stay dry. And those areas, those will be the shadow areas. Now we're still using the soft brush, and the opacity is still at 85%. The size is at 12%. And let's first start creating those areas that are blocked. Like this area over here. Don't worry about going over other areas. We are going to fix that later. Then let's do this area over here near the E. And we are going to this area later. Don't worry about that yet. Let's add a shadow here. And we can also add a shadow area here on the underside. And over here. And we can add a shadow here on the lower left side of the Y. Just make sure that you don't go over this top area. Now we are going to the layer menu. We'll click this layer and then add a layer mask. Click mask. Now you can see that there's a white layer attached to that shadow layer. And if you paint on this white layer with black, it'll mask parts of that shadow. Now, of course, you could also use an eraser, but an eraser is permanent. If we use black on this layer and later you find out that you have masked too much, then you can always switch back to white and get back parts of the shadow. If you erase a part, then you can get it back later. So let's grab a brush, which we can use to erase parts of the shadow. Let's go for a calligraphy brush, and let's use the script brush. But you can actually use any brush that you like as long as it has a crisp edge. This brush is just meant to block parts. We do have to pick pure black, so go to the colors menu and double tap here at the bottom to get pure black. And now for instance, for this area, we want that shadow to be on that U part of the Y and not on this area, so we'll have to remove that. So just go over that area and try to not go over the edge. I have the size at 26% now, opacity is at 100%. You have to be pretty precise. But since we are using a layer mask, you can always just go over with white again. Of course, you can also use quick shapes to get these precise lines. And I understand that it's pretty challenging to make smooth lines. If you zoom out, you won't notice little wobbles. And also at the same time, this is just a great exercise to get a more stable hand. Sometimes it's easier if you rotate your canvas. Some movements are easier than others. Let's go to this area. Let's first go over that underside with a relatively small brush size. You can always make it bigger for the bigger areas. So I'll just erase that. Now for this area, sometimes it helps to make big motions instead of small ones. Try to make one go. Then erase everything over here. Make sure that you don't skip a part. I have a little part over here. We can just go back to white, double tap here in this area, and then add a little bit. I think it's looking pretty decent. Now we'll make another layer. We'll click the plus for a new layer and set that to clipping mask and to multiply as well for some more shadows. Click the N, scroll up to multiply. And for the brush, go back to the soft brush. And for instance, we still need a shadow over here. So let's add that. Let's also add some more shadow on the inside of the E, but let's make the brush a little bit smaller before we do that. 6%. Just a little bit of shadow over here. And here inside the S as well. And we can also add a subtle shadow here and over here. Let's make the brush bigger again, 12%. Let's gently go over that area and over here for a slight shadow. Now we just need to mask this area. Let's go to the layer, click it, give it a layer mask. Then for our brush, go back to the calligraphy brush, the script brush again. And let's rotate our canvas because I just find it easier to make this movement. Try to make a flowing line. This whole You Can Draw This tutorial is altogether a great exercise to work on your fluid lines. For me as well. I'll have to block this as well. And if you have blocked too much, you can just switch back to white and then go over again until it's looking pretty decent. Over here I've got some gaps. And you can just make your brush smaller and smaller. Zoom in more if you want to get it perfectly. Now, but if we zoom out, it's looking pretty decent. Now for some more highlights, we'll use a similar process. We'll create a new layer on top. Again, we'll use clipping mask. And this time we'll set it to screen. So click the N, then scroll down to screen. And for the color, we are going to use this first color in the first row. Let's go back to the airbrushing brushes and use the soft brush. And for the color, let's use the second color in the first row. And now imagine where the light would be hitting. Now the light is coming from the upper right area. So it would hit in these areas. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 7%. It would hit the top side of this E, top side of the S, and over here. If the light was rain, then these areas would get wet. Over here as well. And we can add a little bit of light over here. Now again, to clean it up, you can use a layer mask. You can click the layer, click mask, go to the calligraphy brushes again and use the script brush. Set it to pure black. And for instance, over here we have some light leaking. So we can remove that by using black on the layer mask. And over here as well, it's not that you notice it very much, but there's a little bit of light there leaking in that shadow area. There. Now let's go ahead and switch our background color. Go to the layer menu, then click background color, and let's pick this nice blue, the second color in the second row. Now we are going to add some final touches. We can tweak the light a little bit more, actually, add some more glow. And we are going to do that by using the bloom option. Now I rarely use that option, but in this case, it's really a nice feature to use to add some glow. What we'll do first is merge all the layers. If you are afraid that you might want to change something later on, then I would suggest duplicating your layers and then merging them. You can do that by selecting all of the layers, by sliding to the right, then grouping them, close the group and duplicate that group. Then click that new group, tell it to flatten, and then you still have a backup of your yes with the multiply and the screen layers, so you can always go back and change that. I'll turn it off for now. Now first I'll duplicate this merged layer, click this top layer and turn on alpha lock. That way we will contain the bloom that we are going to add. We will contain it inside these, well, inside the text. I don't want any of that bloom going all over like the canvas. Now let's go to the magic wand, pick bloom, set it to layer, and let's set the size to 26% and the burn to 16%. Now you can use your finger on the screen, slide it to the right to increase the bloom. And you can see that your text is starting to glow. Let's set it to 24.6%. And then you can just click the magic wand again. And if you go to your layer menu and turn that layer on and off, you can see that we have a subtle glow, a subtle golden glow to our text. Next, we'll go to that bottom layer. Turn on alpha lock. Then we'll go to the colors and pick this pink color. That's the first color in the second row. Go back to the layer menu, click the layer and tell it to fill the layer. Then click the layer again, turn off alpha lock and set the layer blending mode to add. So click the N, scroll down and set it to add. Now we are going to blur this layer using Gaussian blur. So go to the magic wand, pick Gaussian blur and set it to layer. And now slide your pen or your finger to the right on the screen to add a blur. I'm going to set it to 24.6% and then just click the magic wand again. Now the final thing you can add is a little shadow to the underground to make this yes appear as if it's floating. So you can click the plus for a new layer. Let's drag it underneath the other layers. For the color, let's use this third color in the second row. And for the brush, let's use the medium brush under airbrushing. I have the opacity of this brush at 100% and the size is at 8%. Now let's just make a line underneath here and make it just as wide as our yes text. Like this. And then go to the Gaussian blur. Go to the magic wand, pick Gaussian blur, set it to layer. Slide your pen to the right. And set it to something like 20.4%. And click the magic wand again. And yes, you have done it. I hope you have enjoyed following this tutorial and that you have enjoyed working in Adobe Fresco a little bit. If the answer is yes, then don't forget to hit that thumbs up. You're the best. I'll see you next time for the next You Can Draw This video tutorial.